Welcome to my channel people. Author link will be on description, make sure to check it out. After the incident in the Hokage's office was cleared and Fugaku covered what actually happened by telling them that Bakurio was being childish and playing a prank on him, Bakurio decided to leave and go find Naruto and Sasuke to have the ramen he promised them. While on the way to their school to pick them up, he checked the last notification he received when he absorbed Zero Tails, bringing a frown to his face. You gained the mastery. Dark Chakra Transformation Level 1. The user can transform the negative emotions directed at him into Dark Chakra. Bakurio looked at the simple introduction and frowned as he finally understood why not all the people from the village hidden in the sky could use Dark Chakra. You must be the cause of those negative emotions in a person's heart, otherwise you won't be able to convert them into Dark Chakra. Meaning most of them would walk down the path of a criminal, and in the end, they would be hunted down by the other hidden villages, so they always have to be careful. I don't think the Zero Tails had this limitation, and if my guess is correct, this also applies for the one responsible for all these seeds of darkness, meaning he probably has incredible reserves of chakra. Even more than a tailed beast. Tch, how annoying. Bakurio's annoyance kept getting bigger and bigger as he started to gauge the strength of his stalker, but it quickly dissipated from his face as he arrived in front of the civilian school and saw that the students were just starting to leave, so he leaned beside the entrance as he observed how many parents came to pick their kids, and how those same kids kept pointing their fingers at him and whispering to their parents with sparkling eyes. This situation continued until Sasuke and Naruto came out, and the moment they saw him, they rushed at him, but he immediately stopped them by poking their heads and saying, "Let's go to Ichiraku Ramen and tell me what happened during my absence." We enrolled into. Sasuke and Naruto started rumbling about their time in school and how Sasuke become the top of his class while Naruto too wasn't that bad, since in this timeline, he has his parents, and Kushina will never let him be lazy. While listening to the two kids, someone suddenly stepped in front of them. Bakurio's mouth twitched a bit, seeing it was none other than Itachi, who said with a smile, "Hi there Bakurio-kun, it has been a while." Bakurio snorted at him and replied, "It was nice not seeing your stupid face, Itachi." Itachi's smile froze as his eyes started twitching a little bit. "Should I incinerate this annoying brat with Amaterasu right now?" thought Itachi, bringing a smirk to Bakurio's face. "Anyways, I'm taking Sasuke and Naruto with me. Big brother, I will be going with Bakurio, see you later," said Sasuke in excitement, not noticing that his brother was feeling betrayed right now, and Naruto also just waved at him before they followed Bakurio. Sigh. His friend comes and he forgets about his elder brother. Itachi had a helpless look on his face, but someone approached him with a smile and said, "You seem happy though. In what world do I look happy?" "Shisui," said Itachi with a pout, making Shisui chuckle a little bit while observing the fading back of Bakurio. Waiki was having some ramen with the kids and hearing about their life for the past few months. Bakurio was surprised when he was approached by none other than Shikamaru. "Oh, Shikamaru, how come you are here, and why did you skip classes today?" asked Naruto, and Shikamaru took advantage of this situation to sit beside him and started some small talk with him before he turned his attention to the kid sitting between Naruto and Sasuke and enjoying his ramen with a smile on his face, but when Shikamaru looked at his eyes, he felt like that smile was only an illusion. But he quickly shook away these thoughts and asked directly, "Bakurio, I heard from my father that you are very strong. How strong are you? Did you reach Jonin level like that genius Itachi Uchiha?" Bakurio glanced at the kid Shikamaru and smiled slightly before he said, "Maybe, why do you ask?" Shikamaru replied immediately as if his answer was long prepared, "Just Kuru." Just at this moment, a green shadow flashed behind Bakurio, and before anyone could react it reached Bakurio before it retreated back again. The normal civilians in the ramen shop didn't see what happened at all, and even kids aspiring to be ninjas didn't see what happened, but in reality, Bakurio had just exchanged a few moves against his sudden attacker before the latter retreated and said, "It seems Kakashi's praise of you isn't for nothing." It was none other than Guy, who had an excited look in his eyes filled with his aura of youth, and Bakurio noticed that he didn't have a seed of darkness, which brought a genuine smile to his face as he said, "Long time no see, Guy." "Oh, so you still remember me? This is nice, ha 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 ha," said Guy with a huge toothy grin. They only met briefly during the incident with Furito, but they didn't interact much. "Of course, who would forget a weirdo like you, and why did you attack Bakurio?" said Naruto while looking at Guy's tight suit with a weird look in his eyes, while Shikamaru simply stared with wide eyes at just what happened. It seems like father was right, this weirdo is an actual Jonin and yet he still fended him off easily without moving from his seat. Meanwhile, hearing what Naruto said and seeing the look on Sasuke's face that said he was going to attack at any moment, Guy let out a laugh before he said, "Let's train together later and see whose youth shines brighter." "Are you crazy? Why would Bako?" Sasuke was about to mock Guy, but to his surprise, Bakurio replied saying with a terrifying grin, "Sure, but you will have to go all out." Guy felt like he was being stared at by a huge monster, but he wasn't fazed at all. Instead, his fighting spirit ignited even more. "Great, I will be waiting for you," he said before he left. After this incident, Bakurio went back home and enjoyed his time for a few days to relieve the stress of having to go blind countless times to enhance his abilities. During this time, many people visited him after hearing about his presence, but the most prominent one was Hiashi and his family, including the shy Hinata and her baby sister Hanabi. But the reason it was so prominent was because Mukai also visited at the same time with his wife and 2 kids, and another kid Neji Hyuga, which made the joyful atmosphere in the house tense. Mukai, this troublemaker, seeing the slight smirk on his face, Bakurio knew for sure that Mukai timed his visit on purpose with the Hyuga family for some reason, and indeed it didn't take long for Hiashi to ask, "Neji, what are you doing here?" During this timeline, he wasn't as cold to Neji since his wife was still alive, but he still had to maintain the prestige of his main family. Seeing how Hinata was looking at her father worriedly and how Neji was slightly scared and hid behind Mukai, Bakurio's heart finally softened and approached Neji with a smile. "What's your name?" Neji was slightly hesitant, but seeing that the kid in front of him had a friendly smile on his face, he replied, "N Neji Hyuga." "Oh, then that's fine. You are always welcome in my house," said Bakurio with a smile as he wrapped his hand around Neji's neck and said, "Come, let me introduce you to Naruto and Sasuke. I'm sure you know them, right? This is..." Hiashi didn't know how to approach this matter since Bakurio seemed to accept Neji just because he was a Hyuga, which made him appreciate the gesture, but something kept bugging him, and that thing was the ugly smirk on Mukai's face, as well as the aching injuries he had from this same hateful guy. The reason Hiashi was mad at Mukai is very simple. Mukai barged into their clan's compound and beat most of their people. Even Hiashi failed to beat him, which was a huge blow to the clan's pride and their main bloodline's BS when the person that beat them had a barely awakened Byakugan, and to make matters worse, Mukai threatened them saying that he would spread the news about what happened today if they don't give him Neji, and he would even do it again if they tried to deny it. He was very cruel after all. The Hokage didn't want to involve himself in these murky waters and considered it an internal affair of the Hyuga clan, not to mention that Mukai was friends with Bakurio, so Hiashi, who was under a lot of pressure from the elders of his clan, felt lost and wanted to discuss it with Bakurio today. But things seemed to only be getting worse, especially when he saw the protective looks on both Kushina disguised and Makoto's faces when they stared at Neji. Meanwhile, after settling Neji to play with Naruto and Sasuke along with Hinata, Bakurio returned to the grown-ups room, but not without shooting Mukai a hateful glare for using him like this, and he would make sure this guy will pay for it. Then he turned around and seeing the conflicted look on Hiashi's face, Bakurio went straight to the point and said, "Care to explain what's going on, Mukai?" Mukai's remained silent, prompting a glare from his wife, who was holding their youngest child, while the other one, Murata, the 3 years old who recovered from his terrible illness, for some reason climbed into Bakurio's back and kept playing with his hair, causing the women to giggle at the huge contrast with his serious face when he was looking at Mukai. Pressured by his wife's glare, Mukai finally gave up and said, "Not much, I just took a stroll to the Hyuga compound, and maybe, just maybe, punched a few annoying old people, that's all." Bakurio could see a few veins popping on Hiashi's head, so he concluded that the situation was as Mukai described, but x100 worse. "You bastard, you call heavily injuring 3 elders and causing other serious injuries to tens of other clan members a stroll?" Hiashi's outburst didn't faze Mukai at all, as he simply shrugged and said, "They attacked me first, what am I supposed to do, dude? You barged into their own house, what do you expect?" thought Bakurio, and almost laughed at how ridiculous Mukai was, and hearing this unapologetic response, Hiashi started gritting his teeth and wanted nothing more than chalk the hateful guy in front of him to death. But he knew he couldn't do it. Hiyashi, I know what Mukai did was absolutely wrong, but. Bakurio suddenly turned to Hiyashi and said with a cold look on his face, don't you think that what your main family is doing to their own people is even worse? Not to mention, Mukai isn't an emotional and hot-blooded person. I'm sure he did this for a reason, right? Mukai was surprised, but a smile soon came to his face as he said, I knew playing dumb won't work with you around, little Monza hum. Mukai felt threatened for some reason when he was about to call Bakurio little monster, and it was none other than all the mothers in the room glaring daggers at him, including his wife, and he saw a small smirk on Bakurio's face making him realize, what a well-played trap, you damned monster, I shouldn't have messed with you. We will talk when we go back home, said his wife with a warm smile on her face making him shiver slightly. I hate my life, thought Mukai regretfully. Meanwhile, Hiyashi had an angry look on his face. Clearly he didn't like the implication of Bakurio's words about their family's tradition that were enslaving their own people, so he slapped the table angrily, startling the kids playing outside, especially Neji. We are simply following the words of our ancestors to preserve the purity of our bloodline. The disguised Kushina was about to say something, but Bakurio interrupted her with his hand and said, I understand your feelings, I'm sure you don't see them that way, but can you say for sure that the rest of your clan elders think the same as you do? Can you really say for certain that they don't consider them disposable pawns? Hiyashi's expression twitched slightly, and Bakurio understood that he was different. Different because his own twin brother who wasn't part of the main family gave his life away just to save him, and yet Neji, his son, still had to suffer. This chain of darkness needs to be broken, thought Bakurio with a cold look hidden deeply in his eyes as some startling thoughts swirled inside his head. It's possible that Black Zetsu had a hand in the current Hyuga tradition the same way he did with the Uchiha. Or maybe something else completely. Maybe even Black Zetsu isn't just a puppet made by Kagaya. TCH, this is annoying. Meanwhile, Hiyashi remained silent since he couldn't rebuke Bakurio's words, but the anger on his face didn't fade away until Mukai spoke. Hiyashi, do you know why my ancestors separated from the Hyuga clan a long time ago? I will offer you a hint. It wasn't because of our weak bloodline. In fact, our bloodline isn't that much weaker from the main bloodline. Hiyashi frowned slightly before he replied. I don't know. Mukai looked at him coldly before he replied. My Kohinata family's ancestors gained a mutation in their bloodline different from the main one. Instead of unlocking the Byakugan, we gained strong talents in training taijutsu, to the point that we even begin to surpass the main bloodline that relied heavily on the abilities granted by their Byakugan, so what do you think they decided to do to us? Hiyashi remained silent, not wanting to reply, but Mukai replied with a murderous look in his eyes. They decided to eradicate us, and no one was to be spared, whether they were the old, the young or the women, none. Everyone in the room held their breaths as the usually laid-back Mukai revealed his true self, a monster among monsters in this world filled with powerhouses. Impossible, there's no way the main family would eradicate you when they have the curse mark to control the other branches. They could even order you to die directly even if you have a weaker bloodline, said Hiyashi with certainty. However, Mukai quickly crushed his wishful thinking. Indeed, that would be the case if we had a normal bloodline, but the mutation in our bloodline made us resistant to the curse mark. It still affected my ancestors who had it, but it didn't deprive them completely out of their free will. That's why they were able to fight back and eventually escape from their clutches, and give us, the next generations, the freedom human beings deserved, but it wasn't without losses, many losses in fact. Hiyashi was left speechless, and he finally understood slightly why Mukai attacked their clan the way he did without care. You understand, right? Bakurio pointed at Mukai and said to Hiyashi, your clan could have been many times stronger if not for its stupid rules, a rule they disgustingly disguised as them trying to protect their eyes being stolen in the case of someone's death to the enemy, but is it really the case? I wonder how many talents your clan lost because of this. Hiyashi remained silent again, as the image of his brother Hazashi kept flashing through his head. Was it really the right thing to do to sacrifice Hazashi? He was even more talented than me and much more worthy of being the clan head, and yet, just because I was born slightly before him Hiyashi was conflicted until Bakurio said, maybe you alone can't change this, but you have my help if you decide to create a change. I'm sure we can knock some sense in the heads of those elders of yours. Hiyashi was startled, and he could see everyone nodding at him silently, warming his heart slightly, but the nice atmosphere was broken by a childish voice saying, "Count me in. I will beat all of them up." This was of course, the dense Naruto, who got excited while overhearing the conversation with the rest of the kids who didn't listen to Hinata, who tried to stop them, and Sasuke tried to stop him from speaking by closing his mouth with his hands, but it was too late. Everyone was a high-level ninja and noticed them a long time ago, but since they made it so obvious, a punishment was going to follow, and Kushina looked at them with her hair floating slightly in a crazy manner saying, "Oh, you kids like to eavesdrop, huh?" Naruto, who was struggling against Sasuke, suddenly went stiff, staring at his mother, sore. However, before he could finish his apology, Kushina was already in front of him and they all got their punishment except for the well-mannered Hinata, who got a pat on the head making her blush. Meanwhile, after some contemplation, Hiyashi finally gave his response. "I appreciate your help, but this is a matter of the Hyuga clan, and I will solve it with my own hands." Seeing the determination on Hiyashi's face, Bakurio simply nodded with a smile and said, "I respect your resolve, but my offer is always open for you." Hiyashi smiled back and the rest were the same, including Kushina, who was lecturing the kids before they finally started enjoying their time properly. Meanwhile, the elders of the Hyuga family felt a chill suddenly, but they were unaware that a storm will slowly visit them, a storm created by their own clan head. After everyone left and Bakurio was enjoying his time at home, Minato came back from who knows where along with an unexpected visitor. It was none other than Kakashi. "Oh, so Minato couldn't help it and told him about his revival in the end, huh?" thought Bakurio with a slight smile. He could clearly see that the heavy burden on Kakashi's heart became much more lighter. "Yo Minato, what's this annoying guy doing here?" asked Bakurio, making Minato sigh helplessly while Kakashi simply rubbed the back of his head, not knowing what to say before he bowed deeply and said, "Thank you for reviving my teacher, and sorry for doubting you before." While Bakurio was away, Minato and Kakashi spent a lot of time together to catch up on what happened while he was dead, and he did his best to help him get out of his depression, especially since he wasn't shackled by his position as a Hokage. He also told him how Bakurio was able to retrieve his soul from the Death Reaper and eventually resurrected both him and Kushina, leaving Kakashi speechless. And indeed, this brought great changes to Kakashi, as well as hope that his friends could be revived just like his sensei. Hence his visit to Bakurio wasn't merely to apologize for his previous behavior, but also to make a request. "You don't have to thank me, I did it for my own purposes," said Bakurio with a smile. "I know, my teacher told me," replied Kakashi, bringing a genuinely surprised look to Bakurio's face as he stared at Minato with a look that said, "Did you really?" and the latter nodded calmly. "I didn't expect Minato would put down his pride and tell someone that he was my follower," thought Bakurio, remembering his transaction with Minato in what appeared to be a long time ago. After some small talk with Kakashi, the latter finally revealed his true intentions and said, "I have a request." Bakurio let out a sigh and directly said, "You want me to revive your two friends, right?" "Yes, I'm willing to do anything in exchange for this, please," said Kakashi with an intense determination in his eyes which made Bakurio fall into contemplation. It's always worth it to have another loyal follower, but this situation is troublesome. I can't tell him that his dearest friend killed his own teacher and his wife and caused a huge massacre by releasing the enraged Kurama inside the village, could I? Minato stared silently at Bakurio. Clearly his presence here meant that he also desired the same thing but simply didn't want to burden Bakurio with such a task after seeing what he had to go through to achieve it, and Bakurio could easily discern those feelings even without relying on his Jikaninki. Eventually, Bakurio looked at Kakashi and said, "I'll accept your request, but I will only revive Rin Nohara. Obito Uchiha will have to wait." Minato's eyes flickered slightly, while Kakashi couldn't hold back his doubt and asked, "Why can't you revive Obito as well? Surely if he can revive two powerful people like his teacher and his wife, he could definitely do the same to weaker people like Obito and Rin, right?" This was what Kakashi was thinking, and Bakurio simply answered with, "It's a limitation of my ability. It weakens me a lot. I have things to do that requires my full power in the near future. But don't worry. You will also get your other friend in the future." Bakurio decided to reply with a mix of truth and lies. He promised him that he will meet his friend in the future, but he never said that he needed to revive him for that. He also said the truth about needing to be at full power in the near future, but it was a lie that the revival process would weaken him. So, Kakashi easily believed him in the end. While Minato simply watched silently, making Bakurio feel uncomfortable. Damn, this guy is too smart for his own good, thought Bakurio, while Kakashi replied with a sincere look saying, I will be eternally grateful, even reviving Rin alone is a huge debt I could never fully repay. As long as you are loyal, you don't have to worry about repaying it. I believe Minato already told you everything you need to know. Go prepare her body for me, replied Bakurio, prompting another bow from Kakashi both to him and his teacher that gave him this opportunity, the opportunity to fix his greatest regret of killing his own friend, before he turned around and left, leaving Minato and Bakurio alone staring at each other silently. However, the silence didn't last long as Bakurio let out a sigh and said, Stop staring at me like that, it's annoying. Minato let out a fake laugh and said, Sorry about that, it just felt weird to me. Why did you lie to Kakashi? This guy and his terrifying instincts, does he also have a Jikaninki or what? Thought Bakurio in annoyance before he replied helplessly saying, I lied for his own good, and yours. Minato was surprised slightly as countless thoughts swirled inside his mind, but he simply couldn't guess what was going on. But it was something concerning one of his students, so he couldn't rest until he understood what was going on. Please tell me. Seeing Minato like this made Bakurio hesitant. He didn't want to hurt his feelings, and telling him that his student Obito killed the two of them despite the fact that in his heart, he loved him more than the other two, and even his wife felt the same even though she argued with Obito a lot, but she always dreamt about one thing, to have a son like him who can be bright and forthright, and grows up to be just like Obito. Letting out a long sigh, Bakurio said, Tell Kushina and Kurama to come here, this is something they need to hear as well. He decided to tell them, and he immediately started to make some changes to his plans. Hopefully my guess is correct, thought Bakurio. Meanwhile, Minato's heart started to grow heavier hearing what Bakurio said, but he quickly left to call them while thinking, why did he need them present? Don't tell me. No, I should hear his explanation first. Finishing his thought, Minato quickened his footsteps. A few minutes later, everyone was assembled in the living room. Kurama was laying lazily with closed eyes, not interested in Minato's student, while Kushina and Minato started seriously at Bakurio, waiting for him to begin speaking, and he simply let out a sigh before he started his explanation, directly dropping a bomb on them. The reason why I can't revive Obito is simply because he isn't dead. Minato stared silently at Bakurio in shock while Kushina stood to her feet and exclaimed, Are you serious, Bakurio? How can you be so sure? Where's he now? We need to find him. Kushina's face was filled with both surprise, shock, and delight at this news, and her doubts were only in the purpose of confirming them and hence confirming this wonderful news. But Bakurio immediately dropped a bucket of cold water on her enthusiasm as he said, It's true, however the matter isn't so simple, said Bakurio, and Minato caught the hint as he replied with a heavy look on his face and asked, Is this why you called Kurama here? Kushina thought that she realized what was going on and said, Bakurio, is Obito in trouble and you need Kurama's help? However, Bakurio simply shook his head, this time catching Kurama's interest as Bakurio said, Obito isn't in trouble. In his current state, it's more appropriate to call him trouble. What do you mean? Kushina's heart started to grow heavier as well as she finally realized that the situation felt more ominous than joyful. Bakurio didn't beat around the bush and directly told them the truth. Obito, known currently as Toby, he's the masked man that caused the incident that led to the death of the two of you 6 years ago, as well as many of Konoha's ninja and citizens. Kushina's face froze, and turned pale like a ghost as she dropped to her knees from the sheer shock she was feeling, while Minato's face twisted in a mixture of sorrow and pain as he asked hesitantly, Is this why you didn't tell us? Bakurio nodded silently, not knowing how to console them. Meanwhile, Kurama's eyes were filled with hatred at the thought of the person that used him. Why? Just why? Asked Kushina while staring at the empty space in front of her. This news was too shocking for her, as she never expected that the boy she loved so dearly like a son would be the one that took her life and caused a lot of suffering. Only he can give you the answer, replied Bakurio, even though he knew the answer, but this was necessary for his next plans. And indeed, his words lit a spark on Minato's and Kushina's eyes, as they both asked with determination in their eyes, Where's he? Ellipsis. Hearing Kushina's question, Bakurio stared at Minato silently before he said, I'm not sure about his current location, but I know you left a mark on him during your fight 6 years ago and you can teleport to him at any time. However, I suggest you don't act for now. Is that true, Minato? Asked Kushina hurriedly, and Minato nodded back with a hint of shock hidden deeply in his eyes, surprised that Bakurio knew even this and couldn't help but think about the great toad sage that wasn't able to predict his future. Then we should go right away. We can't let him stay like that, he must be in pain, said Kushina, but this time it was Minato who replied to her as he asked Bakurio, is there a reason you don't want us to meet him right now? Bakurio thought about it slightly before he responded, he's related to the Akatsuki, and their leader is quite the troublesome fellow, and so are the rest of their members. Wait until I make a few preparations, we shall leave after I solved Mukai's problem with the Hyuga clan. I don't want to leave any unknown danger behind. Kushina was relieved when she heard that this won't take too long, while Minato kept contemplating how could Bakurio think of the Hyuga clan as a hidden danger. The situation with Obito seems more complicated than I thought. It seems like Bakurio-kun didn't hide it from us for no reason. For the next few days, huge waves swept through the Hyuga clan when Hiashi claimed that he wanted to end the heartless tradition of their clan. But of course, he was met with incredible resistance from the members of the main family, and even his position as clan head was under serious threat, and only his good relation with the Hokage was helping him keep it for now. However, he received tremendous support from the enslaved branches. Sigh, I can't believe they wouldn't relent at all in this aspect. Do they really not care about the sacrifices the branch families do for the clan? Don't they care for Hazashi's sacrifice? Muttered Hiashi with a tired look on his face as he remembered his confrontation with the elders of his family. Flashback. I want to abolish the curse mark ritual from our clan, said Hiashi with a determined look on his face. Hiashi, are you crazy? You want to go against your ancestors' teaching, said one of the elders. Our clan was just humiliated by that filthy brat with tainted bloodline, and you want to further humiliate us by agreeing with him, said another elder. This time it was a woman. It must be because of that brat that returned to the village. Mukai was probably only following his orders. The Uchiha clan must be trying to weaken our clan. Is this why the Hokages is supporting you? Now everything makes sense, said an elder who thought he was wise, forcing Hiashi to cut them off. Stop talking such nonsense, how could you doubt my loyalty to the clan? And if anyone hears what you are saying about the Hokage, you will only lose us favor with him. So what? You want us to let them meddle into our matters and not react? Plus, are you an idiot? How are you going to remove the curse marks? Do you want to kill all of the branch family's members? Is this your great solution to free them? Hiashi's face darkened. Of course he knew about the curse being impossible to remove, and the only way it dissipate is if their host dies. What he wanted is to treat them as humans, not as disposable pawns, and allow the next generations to live free from these chains, but it appears that these disgusting elders will only keep playing dumb, and they even started blaming the Uchiha. This is harder than I thought Hiashi, and if Bakurio was here, he would have noticed that all of these elders had seeds of darkness, and they were slowly manipulating their emotions to get more and more aggressive and lose their rationality and come up with crazy ideas like blaming the Uchiha. Even Hiashi had one, and it was slowly manipulating him to give up like the whispers of a devil. End of flashback. While Hiashi was deep in thought, someone entered his room with a smirk on his face. What are you doing here, you bastard? Asked Hiashi with an annoyed look on his face when he saw that his sudden visitor was Mukai. Can't I just visit my dear friend? You know they say friendship is born from fighting, said Mukai with his usual annoying smirk before his gaze landed on a bottle of sake in front of Hiashi, and his eyes lit up as he picked it up and took a few mouthfuls before he let out a satisfied sigh. Ah, the Hyuga really know how to enjoy themselves. That's a limited edition sake from the land of iron. You better be ready to pay the price for it, said Hiashi with a serious look on his face, causing Mukai to pause and say with a pout, why are you being so stingy? But Hiashi simply kept glaring at him with the same serious face, and Mukai finally let out a sigh and said with a grin, fine, you can put the tab on Bakurio Uchiha. Hiashi chuckled slightly before he said, he's going to kill you for that. But Mukai simply took another mouthful before he said, ah, if only these annoying flies didn't ruin it for me. I would have died happily for this. Hiashi's eyes narrowed suddenly as he turned to the door and said, what are you doing here? Surprisingly, his office was surrounded by the elders of his family. Hiashi, how dare you collude with an outsider to try to take down our glorious clan? Prepare yourself to get punished. It seems like you rotten people made up your minds, replied Mukai with a smirk before Hiashi could respond, making the latter speechless since he didn't understand what he meant. You intruder will also be punished for trespassing into our clan, said one of the elders while Hiashi turned his attention to Mukai and finally felt like his presence here wasn't a coincidence and asked while slowly standing up, what's going on here? Mukai shrugged and said, it's pretty obvious, they plan to get rid of you since you do not follow their ways and they can't control you, just like what happened to my Kohinata clan. At the end, Mukai turned solemn and so did Hiashi as he stared at his elders before activating his Byakugan and noticed the situation outside. Many Jonin from the main and branch families were waiting for the order to attack at any moment, and those from the branch families were standing with ugly expressions, clearly they were forced to be here. I see. Hiashi let out a sigh and felt completely hopeless by his clan's actions. I was too naive to think I could change a tradition of many generations just by words, and now I'm going to pay the price. What going to happen to my family? Asked Hiashi, worried about his wife and daughters since he couldn't find them inside the clan's compound, but no one responded to him, letting him know the extent of their cruelty. Hiashi lost all hope and was ready to fight to the death, but that's when Mukai suddenly chuckled. Do you really think you have the advantage in numbers? Shut up. You descendant from a traitorous branch. No clan is allowed to interfere in our internal matters, so don't hope for any reinforcements, said one of the elders with an arrogant look, but Mukai's smile only widened while the elders felt their spines tingling as a strong aura of death covered all of the Hyuga compound. Of course, the Hyuga are going to get their revenge with their own hands, said Mukai with a twisted grin, and to the shock of the elders who activated their Byakugan to see what was going on, they noticed that a dark aura of death covered all of the members from the branch families and they started falling one after another before the aura disappeared. Who dares attack our clan? Show yourself, yelled one of the elders, but he couldn't detect the user of such a weird power, and then to their shock, the branch members they thought were killed slowly rose up, and different from the struggling looks they had earlier, now their eyes were clear and filled with hope as tears fell from their eyes and one of them slowly removed the head guard he was wearing to hide his curse, and surprisingly it was gone, their shackles were removed. Now the numbers are on our side, said Mukai with a twisted grin while Hiashi stared with wide eyes. We are free, muttered a Hyuga from a branch family absent-mindedly before his brain suddenly realized what he just said and he yelled excitedly, we are free. Just how they died and rose from their ashes with unshackled bodies, this shout allowed their spirits to be free as they realized what just happened, and they all yelled, we are free, and they suddenly started sobbing, both the man and woman alike. What are you doing, you idiots? Quick, kill these traitors or you will also be punished, yelled one of the elders hysterically, but Mukai walked toward him with a warm smile and said, let me help you get rid of your remaining brain cell. And his hand flowed gently through the air in a chopping motion, appearing to be in slow motion as everyone could see it clearly. Yet they felt frozen as they could only stare at such a work of art without being able to react to it, and they only woke from the trance-like state when Mukai's movement stopped and he took a huge mouthful of sake before he said, ah, this won't be enough for today's celebration. And then with the same smile on his face, he turned around from the elder and started walking to another one who mocked him. You think it's wise to turn your back to Hikaru? Mukai tilted his head slightly, appearing to be pondering before he answered with a smirk while pointing behind him, who is High and who's Karu? What? That elder was about to ask if Mukai was drunk or something to ask such a stupid question, but then the whole scene turned eerily quiet as a red slit slowly appeared on that elder Hikaru, starting from the top of his head, all the way to his crotch area before he suddenly split into two halves and his blood splattered everywhere. What kind of sorcery is this? Said one of the elders while the one Mukai was walking towards froze in fear and his face turned blue as he said in disbelief, impossible, impossible, how could you kill Elder Hikaru so easily? You are not a human, you are a monster. Seeing the fearful looks the people of the main family were sending him, Mukai let out a faint smile as he remembered the aura of death that removed the curse marks just now before he said, you guys have yet to see what a real monster looks like, before he turned to the people of the branch families and said, let's put an end to this heartless tradition. Yes. yelled everyone before Mukai smiled evilly and a scene of carnage unfolded as he got rid of anyone that opposed their plan to change the Hyuga clan. But just after he killed the last rotten elder, Hiashi suddenly stopped him and stood in front of everyone as he yelled, "Enough everyone, the innocent shouldn't be harmed, but the people from the branch families didn't take too kindly to this, why should we show mercy to the main family when they showed us none? Yes, why should we?" yelled someone else and was ready to attack again, which made Hiashi's expression sink, but suddenly a loud voice echoed as many ninjas surrounded everyone and they were led by Fugaku himself. "Everyone, please cease your aggression," said Fugaku as he walked and stood in front of Hiashi and the rest of the Hyuga clan with his stoic face. At the meantime, he noticed the chopped up bodies and Mukai, who was lamenting the fact that his delicious steak was finished and couldn't help but frown. "These guys are crazy." He was referring to Mukai and Bakurio. "Lord Hokage, how can we stop when we had to live as slaves for most of our lives?" replied one person who wasn't satisfied, and Fugaku immediately replied, "Believe me, no one understands the feeling of being helpless in their own home more than my Uchiha clan," said Fugaku with a sigh, causing people to relax a little since they understood how tragic the history of the Uchiha clan is. Seeing that they were listening to him, Fugaku continued and said, "But someone else here understands your suffering very well, and it's none other than Hiashi. I'm sure you people know about what he regrets the most, and that is what drove him to try change this clan's wicked tradition and almost lost his life for it if not for Mukai and the one that saved you from your curse marks." "That's right, who removed our curse marks," muttered a teenage woman with a grateful look in her eyes, and the sentiment was shared by all of the branch family's members. "I can't tell you the identity of the one that helped you, but he's a member of Konoha, and he wishes if you could give Hiashi a chance to lead you properly," said Fugaku with a heartfelt look. "Lord Hiashi didn't mistreat us unlike those elders," muttered someone. "Indeed, we can accept it if it's Hiashi, but we want justice on all those who used their authority against us." Fugaku hinted at Hiashi to take the lead, and the absent-minded Hiashi finally woke up and walked forward as he started to calm down the situation and promise them a better life, an equal life. "That kid really likes to play with fire," thought Fugaku while letting out a sigh of relief seeing that the situation was back under control. What Fugaku didn't know was that Bakurio was using Jikaninki to influence these people, otherwise, no one would have accepted the situation so easily. Flashback: after Bakurio finished his talk with Minato and Kushina, he called Mukai over and told him to keep an eye on the situation in the Hyuga clan and to follow the plan he had for them before he went to Fugaku and told him about his ability to remove their curse marks and the possibility of them rioting, so he needed him to support Hiashi at that time. Of course, it was under Bakurio's orders to get rid of those rotten elders, especially when he sensed the seeds of darkness inside of them were being very active and he knew they were beyond saving. "I will destroy those seeds soon," thought Bakurio as he waited patiently for the elders to lose their patience with Hiashi, and it didn't take long for it to happen. End of flashback. This brought us to today as Bakurio, knowing that the only way to remove the Hyuga's curse mark was through death, he used his max level Yomi no Kuni to trick those marks into thinking that the Hyuga members were dead, and it worked. The rest was a simple cleaning up which Mukai handled perfectly. "Father!" yelled Hinata from the crowd as she rushed to her father, and he was happily surprised to find that his family was fine, and his wife told him that it was none other than Kakashi who saved them after they were captured. "I'm glad. I should thank Kakashi later," said Hiashi before he thought. Although why did he know about their capture? Was it Fugaku that told him? Or was it? Hiashi's eyes couldn't help but turn to Mukai, who somehow disappeared at this crucial moment. If only he knew that he was ransacking their clan's storage for their good sake. "I will ask Fugaku later. I'm sure a clan meeting would be held soon," concluded Hiashi as he continued to stabilize the situation of his clan. Meanwhile, disguised as one of the ninjas that came with Fugaku, Bakurio was about to retreat back to his home since he was done with today's mission, but suddenly, Mukai appeared beside him. "Yo, Bakurio, that was so cool. How did you make them all fall unconscious?" said Mukai with a smirk, and Bakurio's eyes couldn't help but drift to the tens of jugs of sake he was carrying and frowned. Hiashi's going to kill him for sure. While going back as Mukai was tagging along, Bakurio couldn't help but ask, "You improved a lot in your taijutsu. I didn't expect to see you create a new style by merging medical jutsu with the gentle fist. Mukai almost dropped his jugs hearing Bakurio easily discern the idea behind his new cool jutsu, and seeing his shocked look, Bakurio chuckled slightly and said, "Why are you surprised? I've spent a lot of time with Orochimaru learning medical ninjutsu. You think I didn't notice you doing the same? This kid is annoying as ever," thought Mukai before he replied with a grin, "What do you think? Aren't I the strongest taijutsu user ever? I named that style the sharp fist." Mukai's medical knowledge didn't start just from our time with Orochimaru. He learned a lot when his son Murata was ill trying to find a cure for him, and recently when Bakurio gave him the full techniques the Hyugas had, he was able to create this new one, a very deadly fighting style. Sharp fist, huh? I like it, and yes, you are probably the strongest right now in terms of taijutsu, but in the near future someone will surpass you, and with his taijutsu alone, he would surpass even the level of Hashirama and Madara, said Bakurio with a smile as he thought about the green creep he had yet to spare with. Meanwhile, Mukai froze slightly. Surpass Hashirama and Madara. Is he serious? But he could tell that Bakurio wasn't lying, and this lit a fire in his heart as he asked, "Who's it?" Bakurio smiled at him and said, "Well, come find me early tomorrow and I might tell you. TCH, you are doing this just to annoy me, aren't you?" said Mukai, and Bakurio grinned at him before he said, "Bingo, you are correct. Unfortunately, there's no prize for you, see you tomorrow," before he disappeared from his sight. TCH, annoying brat, thought Mukai before he went home to see his family as well. After Bakurio got away from Mukai, his eyes couldn't help but light up thanks to a notification he received from his system right after the incident in the Hyuga clan was over. Quest: Shackled Clan. Save the Hyuga clan from their idiotic traditions which will allow them to unlock their true potential. Rewards. Hyuga Bloodline 50%, 100,000 points completed. Hyuga Bloodline, huh? But how will this work with me already having a Sharingan? If I recall correctly, Hagoromo had a Byakugan before he awakened his Sharingan, but after that awakening, he wasn't shown using his Byakugan anymore. Was it because his Uchiha bloodline was higher, or is there another reason? Bakurio was conflicted since he didn't want to accept this bloodline and risk losing his Sharingan, but then he couldn't help but think, so far, my different bloodlines didn't affect each other, but I will create a save point just in case. After making his decision, Bakurio accepted the reward of this mission without hesitation. Congratulations, you received Hyuga Bloodline 50% and 100,000 points. After this notification appeared, both of his eyes and the nerves that led to his brain started burning as if they were thrown into a pool of lava, and they appeared to be about to melt at any moment, but he could only grit his teeth as he endured the intense pain. After what felt like ages and his whole body was drenched in sweat, he finally opened his eyes again and he felt disoriented slightly, and after staring into a mirror, to his surprise he found that his originally pitch black eyes transformed into the white pupilless eyes of the Hyuga clan. What's going on? Thought Bakurio as he opened the system's interface and found that he still had his Sharingan abilities, which allowed him to let out a sigh of relief, but he gained a new ability as well. All-Seeing. Eye Level 1. Grant the user a 359 degrees field of vision, as well as empowers their genjutsu and can see through obstacles and observe chakra in a certain range. Current range. 10 meters. I actually got the Byakugan's abilities. Bakurio was delighted and quickly activated it, and he instantly felt his blood and chakra rushing through his eyes and suddenly found himself seeing everything around him in a range of 10 meters, including Kushina, who was preparing dinner happily, and after focusing on her, his vision moved and saw her chakra channels and the vast amount of chakra she had. After deactivating it, he decided to activate his Sharingan, and as usual, his eyes turned into his 3-Tomo Sharingan and he had all his usual abilities. Is this because of the system that I retained the abilities of both bloodlines? Or is it something else? Thought Bakurio before he suddenly had a great idea. What if I used them both at the same time? Driven by his curiosity, Bakurio immediately put this idea to the test and immediately regretted it as he felt a terrifying amount of information rushing to his mind concerning his surroundings, and the world around him completely slowed down as he gained a terrifying level of clarity because to his surprise, he could even see the nature energy drifting through the sky, but he also saw something else, faint dark chakra floating from people's hearts and rising into the air before leaving his sight. What is that? questioned Bakurio before he suddenly felt a terrible ache in his head, and he knew this pain very well. His chakra was completely exhausted. Ah, the consumption is far more than I thought, muttered Bakurio while glancing at his drained chakra bar, but a notification soon appeared in front of him, startling him. Congratulations. You gained the ability Eye of Truth, a new ability worthy of its name, thought Bakurio before he remembered the chakra rising from the dark seeds like a beacon, and his heart became slightly heavier. I need to hasten my plan, he thought as he glanced at the crescent moon that was slowly rising in the night sky. After gaining this new bloodline, Bakurio simply kept his Sharingan activated permanently to hide the fact that he has the Hyuga bloodline for now, and it wasn't that storage since many people from the Uchiha clan do this, such as Shisui. And the next day, he was visited by Mukai early in the morning before even the birds started chirping, and Minato sleepily opened the door for him and said, "Oh Mukai, why are you visiting so early in the morning?" Mukai smirked slightly before he said, "Of course, it's to annoy Bakurio, please wake him up." Minato had some dark lines on his face as he remembered how Kushina kicked him out of bed and told him to see who was knocking. "You are annoying me, you bastard," thought Minato before he let out a helpless sigh and told him to wake up Bakurio by himself. Fine. Mukai's smile spelled nothing but trouble, but Minato wanted to see him in pain, so he let him do as he pleased with a cold smile on his face. As Mukai entered the house, he directly opened the door to Bakurio's room and was ready to splash him with a water jutsu, water style, water splash jut. But before he could finish his hand sign, Bakurio suddenly opened his blood-red eyes, surprising Mukai as 10 lethal kunai flew at him from hidden locations in the room, and at the same time, Bakurio sent a kick to his jaw, but Mukai calmly avoided everything while deflecting those he couldn't dodge, including Bakurio's kick, but it was only a feint as Bakurio twisted midair and kicked him with his other foot, sending him stumbling out of the room. TCH. Brat, why are you sleeping with your Sharingan activated? Asked Mukai in bewilderment, but he only received a snort from Bakurio. It seems like you want to have some fun with Kurama. Mukai, remembering the annoying fox that was playing somewhere recently, he flinched slightly before he said with a warm smile, "I just came to wake you up. Believe me, I came in peace." But suddenly, Bakurio vanished from his vision and he received a painful kick to the ass. "If you try anything like that again in the future, the thing that greets your ass would be one of my lethal kunai," said Bakurio with a devilish smile as Mukai rubbed his aching ass with a nervous look on his face while thinking, "I couldn't react at all just now. What the hell was that jutsu?" This was the power of Bakurio's blink skill, which he rarely uses. "So, who's this guy you are saying will surpass me in taijutsu?" asked Mukai with intrigue as both he and Bakurio walked to one of Konoha's training grounds, and the latter simply replied, "You will soon find out." "He's still mad at me," thought Mukai as his butt still ached slightly from Bakurio's kick, but his attention was suddenly attracted to the training ground as he could hear a voice struggling to count. 856, 857.858. Mukai couldn't help but sigh in disappointment before he shot Bakurio a condescending look and said, "Are you serious? You are comparing me to someone who can only do 800 something of a physical exercise." Bakurio ignored him and kept walking, prompting Mukai to let out a sigh and follow him while complaining constantly. That is until his eyes landed at Guy, who was doing push-ups on one hand while carrying a huge boulder on his back, and Mukai's jaw almost dropped to the floor after seeing this. 900, 901, 902. Guy was sweating rivers from all over his body and he was clearly struggling, but he kept pushing himself to surpass his limits. Mukai's expression finally grew solemn as he saw the unshakable look on Guy's face, and any traces of the disdain he had before had completely vanished by now. They observed Guy silently and waited for him to finish his push-ups, and he soon collapsed after reaching 1000 and started breathing heavily and gasping for air. "Hey, how's he going to spar with us if he's already so exhausted?" asked Mukai while pointing at Guy, who finally noticed their presence. Bakurio, you are here. Don't worry friend, I was just warming up. I haven't even started training yet, said Guy while grinning widely and giving them a thumbs up. "Indeed, stupid people have stupid people recovery," muttered the speechless Mukai while Bakurio approached Guy and gave him a simple stamina recovery potion. "Here, drink this, it will help you recover faster." Okay, said Guy without doubting Bakurio and quickly drank the potion in one mouthful. Isn't he a little bit too trusting, especially from such a suspicious-looking person, thought Mukai, but Bakurio somehow felt it and he ended up receiving another kick for it. Meanwhile, Guy, who had just drank the potion, suddenly felt his tired body slowly filling up with energy again and recovering from its fatigue at an incredible speed. "Oh, this potion is amazing, where can I buy it from?" asked Guy, and Bakurio simply smiled and said, "You can't buy it from anywhere, it was hard to come by, even for me, now I feel bad for taking it," said Guy, but Bakurio simply chuckled at him and responded, "Don't worry about it, anyways, this here is my annoying friend Mukai Kohinata." "Mukai, this is Might Guy." After introducing them to each other, Bakurio quickly said, "So, what do you think about having a spar?" "I've been waiting for it for the past few days," replied Guy with an excited look as Bakurio quickly checked his attributes that were greatly enhanced from his training the past few months and the influence of nature energy. Attributes STR 134330 Agi 1252405 206280 Bit 251300 Sta 340560 Spi 760910. This was the limit of his current body as it was limited by his age, but he might be able to improve it using Dark Chakra, which he will research once he leaves the village. "Let's start then," thought Bakurio before he instantly rushed at Guy without using his chakra to enhance himself. And Guy did the same as they immediately clashed, causing a huge shockwave to pass through the training ground as Guy tried to kick Bakurio and the latter did the same. Shin to shin, the best test for their durability. And surprisingly, Guy didn't as much as flinch while Bakurio frowned slightly at the pain he was feeling since he felt like he just hit his leg into a steel pillar. "His conditioning is way beyond me at the moment," thought Bakurio as he imagined the countless hours Guy spent kicking trees to condition his shins before he barely dodged another kick by him. "We are at around the same speed. This is not normal. As for his strength, I can't determine it yet." After making his initial assessment, Bakurio's movement changed slightly and he started mixing feints into his attacks as well as using his Sharingan to read and learn from Guy's movement, pushing him back slightly. "Amazing, he's just a kid yet he's so skilled and strong. In terms of skills he's even better than me, even if he doesn't use his Sharingan," thought Guy before he started pressuring Bakurio slowly by increasing his strength and speed slowly until Bakurio suddenly disengaged from him and said, "Guy, stop holding back, I want to face you using your true strength." Mukai could see the annoyance in Bakurio's face and he couldn't help but think, is Guy holding back that much for Bakurio to feel insulted? And soon he saw as Guy rubbed the back of his head and said with a grin, "Fine, you deserve me." Going slightly serious. Then, to Mukai's surprise, Guy suddenly lowered his orange leg warmers and took a strip of weights from each leg. He's actually wearing weights, they're probably not that heavy since he even trained with them earlier, thought Mukai, but his jaw soon hit the floor as Guy threw away the weights and they caused a huge depression on the ground as dirt and sand rose in the air. "Okay, you are definitely crazy," said Mukai in disbelief while Bakurio's face darkened slightly before he smiled. "Now this is more like it. Are you ready, Bakurio-kun?" "This time I'm not going to hold back," said Guy with a grin, and Bakurio smiled at him and said, "Bring it on." Guy nodded before he suddenly vanished into thin air as Mukai widened his eyes and saw Bakurio ducking and barely dodging a kick that sent a huge shockwave that shook the trees in the distance. His agility is definitely at least twice mine if not more, thought Bakurio, but Guy didn't give him the time to think and kept attacking him from every possible direction, and Bakurio could only either dodge or block and get sent flying with soreness all over his arms. "The difference in attributes is overwhelming, but I can't lose just like that." Bakurio's eyes sharpened, and Guy, who was shocked inside his heart by not being able to land a finishing blow until now, noticed this as his fighting spirit burned even brighter with the fire of his youth as he rushed at Bakurio and tried to front kick him in the face with his right leg. This was just a feint and he was ready to send another attack right away if Bakurio dodges. However, this time Bakurio used his incredible reaction speed and waited at the very last moment to tilt his to the side, but his face was still grazed by the kick, causing his skin to almost get ripped off, and it barely held on because of his hi-fi. At the same time, he used this opportunity as Guy was still dragged by his momentum and feinted a punch which made Guy raise his guard and divert his attention from his real target, the leg he was standing on. Bakurio sent a vicious kick at the lower part of Guy's leg, causing him to fall face first into the floor and eat dirt, while Bakurio kept holding the right side of his face that was red like a tomato. After standing up, Guy and Mukai kept staring at Bakurio, astonished by how vicious he can be to himself and his opponents, and they felt a slight fear at the thought of facing him as an enemy while he's using his true power. This is the worst kind of enemy anyone could get. I really hate this annoying kid, muttered Mukai, but the grin on his face said otherwise. After staying shocked for a while, Guy's eyes suddenly lit up before he gave Bakurio the thumbs up and said, "Amazing, this is the spirit, to find a way to take down the strong." That attack was risky but well calculated. Bakurio glared at him with a look that said, "Are you calling me weak?" While Mukai chuckled slightly and said, "Well, while Bakurio heals his ugly face, how about we have a spar?" "Sure," said Guy with a grin, and Mukai's careless smile soon turned evil. "Let's start then. No chakra allowed for now." "Okay," replied Guy as he positioned himself to attack, but Mukai simply took a mouthful of his drink and approached him with a relaxed smile on his face, appearing to be completely unbothered by his opponent's possible actions. However, Guy wasn't offended by it because all of his senses were screaming at him to be careful, but he wasn't afraid. Instead, it only fueled his desire to fight and test himself as he found himself a good challenge. "Ha!" yelled Guy as he attacked with a very fast and destructive spinning kick, but Mukai calmly ducked to avoid it and punched him away with his free hand that wasn't holding the jug as he said, "Too much wasted movements." "Ah," muttered Guy as he stood up while clutching his aching chest where he got punched before he attacked again. Yet no matter how much he attacked, Mukai effortlessly evaded his attacks and counterattacked every time. This was the impact of skill when the physical attributes are similar. Mukai was intentionally using the same speed and power as Guy, yet he was easily beating him back and forth with one hand while smiling smugly at Bakurio from time to time, which annoyed the latter to no end. "Enough," said Bakurio, who was healing his face before he said, "Use chakra, and Guy, please don't hold back and beat this bastard. I'm sure he won't hold back and will keep tormenting you." Guy and Mukai slowly retreated from each other, and the former said with respect, "You are the best taijutsu user I have ever encountered, but you better start taking me seriously, otherwise you will suffer." Guy's eyes were shining in anticipation of the true beginning of their fight. Mukai smirked at him and took another mouthful of his drink as he said, "Oh really? Please show me what you've got." "Fine," said Guy before he suddenly paused eerily and crossed his arms in front of his chest and said, "First gate, the gate of opening." Nothing seemed to change about Guy, but Mukai's smug look suddenly froze as he felt that something was going on when he saw Bakurio, who had his Sharingan activated, was showing an intrigued look, so he quickly activated his Byakugan. The moment he did, he noticed that a tenketsu in Guy's brain, the right hemisphere to be specific, was opened, which was an extremely dangerous thing to do, and Guy's chakra began moving more rapidly throughout their body, and it also stimulated their physical energy. Opening this gate allows the user to remove their brain limiters. These limiters usually prevent humans from using their full potential so that they don't end up hurting themselves, but now Guy was slowly getting rid of them, and he was about to show the world the terrors he could cause. "Don't tell me, this is that legendary technique. Is this guy crazy?" muttered Mukai with a questioning look at Bakurio, who simply kept watching with intrigue as his Sharingans revolved silently. "This bastard. I finally understand why he wanted to spare with this guy. How dirty," thought Mukai before he refocused his attention on Guy that said, "The second gate, the gate of healing." Again nothing seemed to change around Guy, but through their dojutsu, they could see that the tenketsu in the left hemisphere of his brain was opened. This gate allows the user to regenerate much more rapidly, and increase their strength slightly. The third gate, the gate of life. This one, located on the spinal cord, made Guy's skin turn red. It was the first greatest empowerment to Guy, as the sheer force of the chakra that was gushing from his body created a buffer zone around him as his eyes slowly turned white. This one allows him to use the full 100% of his body's potential. "Oi oi, is this guy for real? He's gonna get us both hurt at this rate?" asked Mukai, who started to get a twisted smile on his face, a smile of pure excitement and thrill. And Guy wasn't done yet. The fourth gate, the gate of pain. This gate, located also in the spinal cord, was the first step for going beyond the limits, as it helps the user suppress their feeling of pain and allows him to reach 200% of his speed. The fifth gate, the gate of limit. This gate, located in the abdomen, creates a blue hue around the user and allows him to use 200% of their strength. By this point, Guy's surrounding was chaotic as the chakra gushing and swirling around his body caused even the ground he was standing on to crack as his hair stood up and stared at Mukai. "Here I come." Bakurio watched as for the first time, Mukai actually threw him his bottle of sake while saying with a cold look, "Hold this for me." Just as Bakurio held the bottle, the two monsters in front of him clashed. Huge shockwaves caused the ground in tens of meters to crack and huge winds roared through the training ground and threatened to uproot the trees. Amazing, Mukai's actually matching him in speed and strength easily. Bakurio was amazed as he watched Mukai's perfect control of his chakra to use it to increase his speed, as well as the way he used the Hyuga's gentle fist to nullify Guy's attacks easily. Their fight went on for a few seconds, and Guy, seeing that he wasn't getting the upper hand despite all of this, resolved himself and muttered, "Konoha's strong whirlwind." Before he suddenly disappeared at an even faster speed and appeared behind Mukai while using his famous backward spinning kick, and he put all of his strength into it. But Mukai was able to react fast enough with his Byakugan and turned around at the right moment and used a highly concentrated 8 trigrams vacuum palm. Guy's leg hit the compressed air in front of Mukai's palm and he couldn't touch it at all before he was sent flying away and smashed into a few trees before he stopped and cancelled his 8 gates jutsu and kept breathing heavily and wincing in pain since he felt his leg slightly cracking after this attack, and let's not talk about what happened to his muscles. Meanwhile, Mukai stood there silently while staring at his own arm. It was filled with lacerations and deep cuts that reached all the way to his bones. Bakurio quickly went to fetch Guy, who already fell unconscious, and looked at Mukai. "What do you think?" Mukai let out a long sigh before he said, "If this was a fight to the death, I could have killed him many times by now, but if he were to open the rest of the gate, I will have no chance in beating him, especially if uses the 8th gate. My loss would be carved in stone, and so is his death." Bakurio was intrigued. "You are right, since the 6th and 7th gates increase the speed and strength of the user by around 500% respectively. But I'm surprised, do you really think you might survive if he uses the 8th gate on you?" Mukai shrugged and confidently said, "Well, I haven't seen it, so we can't tell how much it will increase his attributes and for how long. I think I can stall until he burn out." "Ha ha ha ha." Bakurio couldn't help but laugh loudly, startling Mukai before he said, "Listen Mukai, never provoke someone who can open all 8 gates. Your chances of dying are 100%, buddy. The 8th gate is a whole different deal. Now let's get you two treated." Mukai stared weirdly at Bakurio, who was carrying Guy on his back and walking toward Konoha's hospital silently before a new light flashed through his eyes, the light to grow even stronger. In the hospital, Bakurio was scolded by Tsunade for allowing such a thing to happen to Guy, but he only put all the blame on the two fighters in question who didn't know how to hold back and ran away back home. While being treated by Tsunade in the hospital, she noticed that Mukai appeared absent-minded, which made her ask, "Why did you two go so far?" Mukai stared at her slightly before he responded with a shrug. "We didn't use our full strength. He was holding back, and so was I." "You idiot, you almost ruined his leg," said Tsunade as she punched him in the head, causing a bump to appear on it, but he didn't bother dodging it. "Damn you Bakurio, leaving me alone with this annoying woman," he thought before his mind drifted to the scene of Guy unlocking the 8 gates. As an outsider of Konoha that was only picked up by Hiruzen, who invited him to his Anbu because of his amazing skills, he always felt like an outsider during his stay here since people didn't completely trust him, so he wasn't allowed to train such a forbidden technique like the 8th gates despite his great desire for it, and that desire slowly died down when his son fell ill and he had to stay with him at all times to earn enough money and take care of him, so he couldn't risk training such a dangerous jutsu. However, now things are different, thought Mukai as Bakurio's figure appeared in his head with his son Murata jumping on his back and playing with his hair. "Even if I die, my family will be okay with him around, but I'm sure even if I do, he won't leave me dead for long." A small relaxed smile appeared on Mukai's face, surprising Tsunade. "Why's he smiling? Did I hit him too hard in the head?" she thought, but she was unaware that Mukai, for the first time in his life, felt free from all of his shackles. This was a turning point in his life that was going to give birth to a terrifying monster, For he was the most talented Kohanada clan member that inherited their purest bloodline, and he was going to unleash its full potential. During his journey back home, Bakurio kept replaying the fight between Guy and Mukai inside his head, and the more he did, the more intrigued he felt. The 8 gates are indeed overpowered, but seeing the state it left Guy in after only using up to the 5th gate, it appears that I will have to try to find a way to fix it before it becomes a viable fighting solution for me. Bakurio kept thinking about how to fix this huge flaw in the 8 gates, including using Orochimaru's jutsu to possess a new body after using it, but this one has a huge cooldown and is the same as being forced to wait 3 years each time he uses it, not to mention that he will be forced to sacrifice his current body, which was a no-no for him. The other solution would be to use it alongside Tsunade's regeneration jutsu, but he felt like it would only make the duration of the jutsu shorter, since that jutsu shortens the lifespan of its user. After thinking about many things, he couldn't help but notice some kids playing around with toy kunai pretending to be ninjas, and he was attracted to the dark color of the kunai. Dark chakra allows the user to surpass their normal body's potential. If I can master it, it might make up for the flaw of the 8 gates, but this means I will have to fix its own flaw. Bakurio felt like this was the best solution for now, and it might work, so he decided to start his research as soon as possible. Meanwhile, at the land of sound inside a hidden cave, Kabuto kept absorbing all of the knowledge Orochimaru taught him, and the latter was left speechless by Kabuto's talent. Orochimaru found that he was a prodigy just like he used to be, and unlike his usual pawns, for the first time he found someone that could carry on his legacy. Although he wasn't planning to die at any time in the near future. Orochimaru-sama, Experiment 403 ended in failure after testing the new solution to stabilize the bloodline. The reaction between Bakurio's blood and the sample he gave us from Hashirama's blood failed again, but this time they begin merging slightly before Hashirama's bloodline destroyed Bakurio's. Experiment 404. After adding, Kabuto kept explaining the results of each experiment one after the other, and Orochimaru couldn't help but wonder, just what in the hell are we creating for it to be this hard? He was used to experimenting on all kinds of bloodlines, including rare ones such as Kimimara's, yet he still instinctively felt like they were trying to create something terrifying. And it excited him greatly. Kabuto frowned slightly at Orochimaru's crazed look, but he was used to it, so he ended up ignoring it and said, "Currently, our best result is only at a synchronization rate of 11%. The reason they were finding it hard to merge the two was because of Bakurio's other bloodlines interfering, and now with the addition of the Hyuga bloodline, it was going to make their lives even more miserable." "What do you think is the reason for this?" asked Orochimaru, trying to test Kabuto, and latter pondered for a bit and said, "Bakurio-kun has a very unique bloodline that is different from a pure Uchiha bloodline, and it contains many attributes. Just the fact that they are coexisting normally in his body is a miracle. I think we will need to identify each attribute and try to study them individually first before we try merging everything together and add Hashirama's to the mix." Orochimaru's eyes lit up slightly and he asked with a twisted grin, "And how do you think we are going to find those out?" "If I had my previous lab, there's a chance to do this since I collected many data in it. But unfortunately, I had to destroy it during my escape." Orochimaru's heart ached slightly as he recalled his great escape from Konoha, but Kabuto's voice cut him off from his daydreaming as he said, "I think we should ask Bakurio directly and see what he knows. He probably knows his body better than us after all." Orochimaru's eyes flashed slightly as those bloodline research papers Bakurio gave him came to his mind, and he felt like this was a good idea, so he nodded at Kabuto, and the latter took out the communication device Bakurio left him and started injecting his chakra into it. Of course, Bakurio would never leave a communication device to a creep like Orochimaru, so he left it with Kabuto. Back at Konoha, Bakurio was surprised by Kabuto calling him, but he still picked up his communication device and listened to him. "Hi Bakurio-kun, how are you doing?" Bakurio chatted with Kabuto for a little as the latter asked about the situation in Konoha and how Nono was doing, and Bakurio told him that she was doing fine as she went back to her job in the orphan, which made him happy. After that they started talking about business as Kabuto said, "We reached a bottleneck in the bloodline research despite the research you provided us. Can you help clarify a few things?" It might help us greatly. That snake is really useless, muttered Bakurio, and Orochimaru clearly heard this as he took the communication device from Kabuto with a sick smile and said, "Thank you for the compliment, Bakurio-kun." Bakurio's face darkened slightly. "Yo, white creep, what do you want to know?" Kabuto chuckled slightly after seeing the look on Orochimaru's face, but he immediately shut up after he was glared at as Orochimaru started explaining the situation to Bakurio and finished by saying, "So do you have any idea what the elements in your bloodline are?" Bakurio pondered slightly before he opened his status and said, "Well, they should be Uchiha, Shadow, and Akamichi bloodline." After pausing for a while, Bakurio said, "I also have a Hyuga bloodline. I will have to send you a new sample of my blood." Orochimaru's jaw almost dropped to the floor when he heard this, as he thought, "Why are you making our lives miserable when you can integrate so many bloodlines?" But he would never guess that it was a terrifying system that achieved this. After Bakurio gave Orochimaru a description of the bloodlines he had, they easily collected 3 samples from the ones in Konoha, but the Shadow bloodline was slightly tricky since it was quite rare. But Orochimaru already started sending his pawns to locate if anyone has it. The next few days, Bakurio focused on training his various abilities, and he was surprised by how many quests he found completed after he checked his quests and status windows. Each type of mastery gave him amazing rewards. Learning medical arts under Tsunade and Orochimaru allowed him to raise his medical arts quickly, and he received Big Health Potion X10, and the 2 items, Life Necklace and Critical Lenses, as his medical art reached the levels 10, 25, and 50 respectively. The Big Health Potion was something different than his usual health potion drops, as they allowed him to regenerate 50% of his health over a period of 10 seconds, while normal health potions only restore 10% over a period of 60 seconds, and yet those normal ones were so rare that he keeps them stashed in his inventory in case of emergencies, and all in all he had 11 after all the leveling up he did during his time with Jiraiya, and now he got 10 of better quality ones directly. As for the life necklace, it granted him 5% life steal when he hits a target from close combat, so things like ninjutsu won't work with it, but it was still a heavenly treasure that increased the horizon of his fighting abilities. Just imagine guy wearing this necklace. It might even be enough to nullify the shortcomings of the 8 Gates Jutsu, which Bakurio was also training and had found some good success in it. Probably thanks to his Greedmaster body talent as well as his Tenketsu release ability, which grants him better control over his Tenketsu. As for the critical lenses, they were a special item that grants him the chance to deal critical damage by showing him certain flaws in his enemy's structure, and he has to strike them the moment they appear, resulting in a critical strike that deals double the damage. However, it only has a 1% chance of appearing for each time he's about to attack. Other than these, he also completed some quests from his mastery of sealing arts, which he wasn't so focused on training at the moment despite having talent in them, as his plate was already full with plenty of things to do. He mainly got 10 cleanse potions and 20 attribute points from his sealing arts, reaching levels 10 and 25 respectively. This cleanse potion allows him to dispel most negative statues such as binding, curses, seals etc. It even worked on the dark seed, although it only made it go from an active state into a passive state and didn't destroy it completely, but it was a testament to the effectiveness of this potion, since previously, he had to strain his normal Jikaninki to suppress the dark seed. Other than that, he gained an additional 40 attribute points after receiving the Hyuga bloodline and completing a related quest, New Blood 2, gained 4 different bloodlines of purity more than 20%. Reward: 40 attributes points, but his rewards didn't end here, as he also got 2 new skills, Dark Rain and Void Slash, from his throwing art reaching level 75 and swordsmanship reaching level 75 respectively. Dark Rain, just as its name suggests, is an active skill that allows him to throw any projectile into the air and it would make it multiply, while granting it corrosive properties. Number of multiplications and strength of the corrosive properties increases with level before they start falling down, making them a literal rain of death. Meanwhile, the Void Slash was a special attack that allowed him to attack any target with his sword in a range of 5 meters. The range increases through leveling up the skill, and it has defense penetration properties, making it perfect against both tanky opponents as well as sneaky ones. And finally, he received the ability, Nature's Blessing, from completing the meditation-related quest, Meditation 4, reach level 75 in your meditation. Reward: 3,000 points. Nature's blessing. This blessing grants him increased affinity to natural beings and animals and even doubled the speed at which he can absorb nature's energy. This will become handy very soon, thought Bakurio when suddenly he heard Kushina calling him. Bakurio-kun, you have a visitor. Who could it be? He thought as he left his room and went to see his sudden visitor, but then he saw that it was none other than Kakashi. Oh, Kakashi, did you finally get everything ready? Asked Bakurio, and Kakashi nodded at him with a slightly excited and nervous expression at the same time before he said, Yes, teacher is waiting for us. Oh, I will come with you too, said Kushina suddenly since she missed Rin a lot and couldn't wait to see her again. Bakurio nodded at her and started following Kakashi before he asked, By the way, what took you so long? Was he busy because of the Hyuga incident or what? Thought Bakurio curiously, but Kakashi shrugged and said, It was tough getting our hand on a pair of Sharingan, and it's not easy to ask the Hokage for something like this since he has a responsibility to protect his clan, so I was even contemplating using my Sharingan despite it not being enough, but teacher somehow convinced Fugaku-sama to give him a pair. I see, muttered Bakurio as he remembered how Fugaku didn't like the idea when he asked him for a pair as well. But it wasn't his problem this time. They wanted to resurrect Rin, so they had to get all the ingredients needed by themselves. He was merely a cook. After walking for a while, they arrived at Kakashi's house and Bakurio noticed that it seemed clean. Probably Kakashi cleaned it just for Rin, or maybe this is his idea of a clean start, who knows. Bakurio, you are here, said Minato, and Bakurio can see that he was also nervous and excited just like Kakashi, but he could also sense that he was feeling relieved. Yup, let's start, said Bakurio, and Kushina frowned slightly and said, Are you sure you don't need a medical ninja? She was worried for him, but Bakurio learned medical ninjutsu and can heal himself quickly. Don't worry, I will be fine, said Bakurio with reassuring smile before he nodded at Minato, and the latter offered him a pair of Sharingans and Bakurio slowly put them on coldly without even flinching as he approached the coffin that contained Rin. Kakashi watched all of this silently and he finally understood why his teacher was reluctant to ask him for this favor. He knew what it feels like to lose an eye, not to mention two. And he had to do it twice. Then he watched how Rin's body begin recovering at a rapid speed before she completely recovered, and Bakurio picked her from the coffin and laid her down on a bed nearby. Why's she still not awake? Asked Kakashi with a worried look, fearing that whatever sorcery Bakurio was doing might have failed, and his heart ached seeing the recovered Rin having no heartbeat. The currently blind Bakurio from using Izanami and Izanagi turned to him and said, You expect a dead person to wake up suddenly? That would be creepy. Before he eerily removed the two blind Sharingans and picked his own from a specially prepared container and put them on one by one and started healing himself at the same time while his high vitality helped to increase his regeneration, and soon, he was back to his normal state, although with bloodstains still on his face. Now then, let's bring Rin back, muttered Bakurio before he stared at Kakashi and said, Yomi no Kuni. Current status, stat value, name Bakurio Uchiha, level 2548, health 11,466 chakra, 24,920 stamina, 5600 attributes, stragi 5 eitstaspi 300 quadrillion 240 trillion 280 billion 300 million 560,910 free attribute points 320 240 plus 20 plus 40 plus 20 mastery close combat fighting. Level 8796 Swordsmanship. Level 7482 Throwing Art. Level 7477 Sealing Art. Level 2345 Medical Art. Level 65 Chakra Control. Level 7895 Meditation. Level 5381 Fire Chakra Transformation. Level 6175 Wind Chakra Transformation. Level 3275 Water Chakra Transformation. Level 3675 Lightning Chakra Transformation. Level 1075 Earth Chakra Transformation. Level 875 Yin Chakra Transformation. Level 5175 Yang Chakra Transformation. Level 5675 Dark Chakra Transformation. Level 3 Skills Kekkei Genkei Eye of Insight. Level 7286 Eye of Hypnotism. Level 7583 Yomi no Kuni. Level 100 Hai Jikaninki. Level 1 Susano. Level 31 45 All-Seeing Eye. Level 13 Eye of Truth. Level 2 Space-Time Summon. Quintuple Rashomon. Level 41 Summon. Lesser Skeleton. Level 36 Blink. Level 42 50 General 812 Ninjutsu. Fire 8, Wind 10, Water 9, Lightning 7, Earth 9, Yin 5, Yang 5 10 Taijutsu, Gentle Fist. Level 40 8 Trigrams Palms Revolving Heaven. Level 67 8 Trigrams Vacuum Palm. Level 51 8 Trigrams Vacuum Wall Palm. Level 32 8 Trigrams Palms. Level 60 Burning Aura. Level 35 51 8 Gates Release. Level 15 Shurikenjutsu 3 Dark Rain. Level 1 Kenjutsu, Swift Sword Style. Level 38 43 Void Slash. Level 1 Juinjutsu, Dark Touch. Level 11 25 Senjutsu, Nature Chakra Absorption. Level 42 67 Strength Sage Mode. Level 50 Genjutsu, Fuinjutsu, Abilities, Save and Load, Appraisal, Map, Tenketsu Release Blessing of the Elements, Nature's Blessing, Reinforced Heart, Rebirth from the Ashes Bloodlines, Uchiha 50%, Hyuga 50%. Akamichi 30%. Shadow 35%. Talents Body Greetmaster, Chakra Master, Cooking, Sealing Advanced, Hunter Medium. Thank you for listening guys, see you in the next part.